Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says it's live. So,
Oh, does
hi
it already?
everybody. Hi if we are.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
oh, I have to consent to be recorded apparently.
oh
I
yeah, that's all
I
right.
had to that's new.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I
Facebook's trying to
consented.
take care of people finally.
Yeah.
That's nice. All right. So we are live here. If you're joining us from my Learning to See workshop, you're here on Zoom with us. And if for the rest of you on the Gabriel Marklipper Fine Art Facebook page, which if you're watching this, you found it. Pretty exciting. And I gotta get the right image up. You know, for all the times I do it, it seems like it's brand spanking new every time. Okay. All right, and there's a whole bunch of attendees coming in.
Hi, Marie
And
Louise. I see someone I know.
This is what's so cool, Louise. A lot of these are your people as well. We know each other, and we know art, and that's the community that we're living in right now. And this is kind of what makes it amazing.
Yeah, well, I found you because of an online community that you were part of. Then yeah, I've introduced people to your course, you've introduced people to me. So yeah, we're all interconnected in this.
Well, it's a small world. It reminds me of, in school, the art kids. That was not a very big group. So when you make that a bigger, in the world, it gets bigger, but it's not really that big. It's a small percentage of people that are really passionate about the arts in that way, that are, actively doing. And so I think that's interesting, because here we are on this international platform. There's people from all over the world participating in this creative process, and yet I still know a lot of the same people, because I think it is a small big community, which is fun.
What's interesting to me is when I was starting out, because I started out late in life doing this seriously, so only about 8 years ago.
Why did you switch to serious?
No, well, I wasn't doing it at all. I should say I was not doing it. And then I started painting again about 8 years ago, after doing it a lot as a young person. And what was different then than now is there wasn't any of this, really, even just 8 years ago. And I really was lonely because the artists around where I live, they all know each other. They're all at a certain level. They all have shows and things together, and you can't barge your way into that kind of a group. It's not that they're mean or anything. It's just that they're already friends and established, and, oh, hello, I don't know what I'm doing. Can I be your friend? That's not really going to work.
I've tried that many times, actually.
But the online world, it slowly began to open up, probably to me about 2017, 2018. And that's when I started to meet people online. And then I had connections, and then I had support. And now people don't realize how lucky they are. Sometimes people say, oh, I'm overwhelmed with all these courses and groups. And it's like, yeah, but you have no idea.
They weren't even there.
Yeah, just to have that to choose from is amazing.
And then the exponential learning that has taken place through that process that's been a big eye-opener for me. When I opened this the Learning to See course that we're just finishing up, we've got a couple weeks left or whatever, two more calls, but I had been teaching out of the studio for the last 20 years, so a group of 10 students, and it was lovely. I love working with artists and going through that process. And I was concerned with the online part that I was going to, that it wasn't going to it would be a poor substitute for something that was hands-on and like right in the space. And what I realized when I started seeing the results of the learning that was taking place was that by being able to provide something that you can revisit, rewatch, move at your own pace from your own studio, where all your supplies are, where all where everything is, where your cat is, like that space is a much more creative space. When you come in, when you shuffle into somebody's workshop, you bring what you can. You have to be there for 3 hours. absorb as much as you can, the overload of that, right? And then you're gone.
Yeah.
Check in next week, and I hope you remember what I said.
Yeah.
And it's like, that actually wasn't maybe the most effective way to teach. And I'm seeing the results are just so different. So anyway, that's nice.
Yeah. I think the other amazing thing as a teacher, you will have discovered, and I haven't done it the other way, but doing it this way, you get to see people go on. So if they come to a workshop, when I've gone to in-person workshops before, I leave, that tutor never sees or hears from me again. We didn't have any time to make a real connection, and then I'm gone. Yeah. And they don't know what I learned from them. But when you teach online, you see people months later, years later, and you see the ongoing growth. And I'm seeing people now from my first course. So my first one was 3 years ago, and it was a trial of just a few people at a low price. And some of those people, I mean, one of them is now about to launch her own program on a related but different topic, and she's blossomed. Her artwork's amazing. She did the thing she thought she couldn't do, which was to paint emotional portraits, is what she wanted to do. She was an abstract painter. She's done that. She's just taken some of her work to a museum for an exhibition. She's launching her own thing, and I'm singling out one person, but there are so many cases like that. And I wouldn't get to see that if she'd just come for a week and then gone.
Yeah, just being able to see the posts of artists' work. I mean, even that is fairly new. This idea of this online, hey, let's check in and see what they're doing. We were all creating in these kind of isolation, cocoons. Yes. And I know for me, and pre-internet, I'm actually afraid to post. I don't know if I'm afraid. We'll have to talk about that later. But I am a little bit. I have all this work that I've done over the course of my career that maybe landed, maybe didn't, and I've squirreled it away. And I don't. The way that social media is, it's so immediate. You don't want to be pulling out stuff from the bin because that's not now. That's not the new thing that I've done. That's from a few years ago. And but there's so much work that just never got seen because I wasn't in the gallery world for it took me a long time to get into the gallery world. And even then I would do these very select specific bodies of work for gallery shows. But I'm very prolific. I work all the time. So there's paintings everywhere. And just now people show their paintings as they're doing them, and you get to see this process unfold, and it's so rich and wonderful. It can be also kind of intimidating to see all that work all the time, So Louise, we didn't get to our official introduction. I know most of you on this call maybe know us both, but Louise Fletcher has a Find Your Joy program that is just really exciting. And you have a YouTube channel, and you have, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel. I am in love with. There's these, she shares these, well, obviously, and a podcast.
Oh, and the
Sheridan, Art Juice, which is, what is that, 120 plus?
Yeah, 122, I think was the last one that we were on.
So 122 episodes of the award-winning Art Juice podcast. I mean, you're a force of nature, Louise. When we met, it was in a different workshop thing, and you were clearly talented, but you were finding your way. And then
I was beginning.
So
I don't waste time.
She's taking over the art world.
But this is the thing that inspired me to want to help other people, is realizing how quickly, with the right teachers and the right support and the right belief in yourself, that you don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to wait to be at a certain level before you can say, I have something to share with everyone, whether it's your artwork or what you want to teach. And our podcast, for example, just began as two people chatting, two working artists chatting about what it's like to be a working artist, good and bad, but not like a teaching. I didn't feel in a position to say, listen to me about being an artist, because I haven't been one for very long. It's about that journey of what is it like to do this, and what are the ups, what are the downs. And same with my teaching. I thought, I don't want to teach people how to paint. You, for example, have eons more knowledge and experience than I do. You've been at this full time for all that time, and you're so skilled and so talented. But I do have the ability to help people kind of have the same mental approach to life that I do, of just go for it, dive in. And I seem to be able to inspire even people who are nervous. I seem to be able to unlock something in them so that they can feel they can go for it too. And that's my superpower. It's the only one I seem to have, but it's enough.
It's a pretty good one. The idea that you're willing to take that, like that blind step of faith off the cliff, knowing you're going to land solidly again and again, is probably the hardest part. Maybe it's one of the hardest things that we have to kind of tackle for ourselves in life, is the ability to step into the unknown, to do the thing we don't know how to do. And that, as an artist, is really at the crux of what our practice is always about. Because if you're creating something that hasn't been created before, then no one knows how to do that. No one knows how to step into that place. And it's terrifying, honestly, to create from that place.
Because no one can tell you, is it any good? I mean, particularly.
Oh, they can tell you.
Yeah. But I mean, no one can, like, it's not like you can say, okay, I did that right. Like some things in life, I either got that right or I got that wrong. And there's an exam and you passed or you failed. It's because you're expressing what you want to express, what's inside you and your experience of life. Yeah, people can have an opinion, but actually it's not really relevant or valid, in my opinion. It's what you know about, did that do what I wanted it to do? And if it did, then I can walk head high through a room full of people saying, I don't like it. But if there's even the slightest niggle in me that I think it's not very good, if somebody says, I'm not really liking that one, that's going to knock me for six, because deep down I know it's not very good. And so what you say will really impact me. And I just think it's so important that we get to that place, which we can't get to right from the beginning, right? We have to have help at the beginning. But if we can get to that place where there's Brian Rutenberg, who's an American semi-abstract landscape painter, he calls it becoming your own best friend. And when you become your own best friend, you're 12 feet tall and bulletproof. So you can literally just, this is my art. I don't care what you say, because I know it's good. I know it did what I wanted it to. That's the place that we need to get to. But that's what's so difficult when you, not even just beginning, that's what's so difficult for so many people, I think. So we paint something, we feel kind of good about it, we feel excited. Then our brother-in-law comes round and he says, oh, I thought you used to paint things that look like something. Now you're doing, what's this? Just daubs of paint on a canvas. That's not real art. And suddenly we go crash, right? Because that's our biggest fear.
It's so difficult.
Our biggest fear is that that's true. Sorry, go on. I think we're just slightly on a lag.
That's it, isn't it? It's like it's that it's so difficult to stand in our own shoes. Often, it says, walk a mile in someone else's shoes, but have we ever really taken the time to just be present with where we're at, what we're about, who we are as artists, and then what makes us tick? So often I'll be working on something and I really could be thrilled by it, and someone else with a different take comes along and goes, oh, that, or even, usually what happens is they don't say that. I just project what they're thinking on them, and then react to it, respond like, oh, they couldn't possibly like this. And that's too bad, because oftentimes I'm wrong. But
But it's good for people to hear that someone at your experience level feels that. I think it's really good for people to hear that, because we imagine, looking at someone who makes work like you do, we imagine, oh, well, he's got it all together. Every time you go into paint, you just magically create something wonderful. There's no struggle. And then you just walk out knowing how fantastic you are. And if that's not true, it's good to know.
Yeah, let's break that down a little bit, because I think that is really, I think a lot of people do feel that way. And I also think that that's right where art kind of falls apart, because this idea, I've painted for a long time, and I've been a obsessive artist all my life. But if I were to walk into the studio knowing what I was going to do and that I could do it well, and then execute that and do it well, there's no creative reward in that. If I know what I'm doing before I get started, if I execute it in the way that I already know how to do, I haven't done any growing. I haven't pushed myself to any place of, any place new. So that's such not an artistic place to be in, when if you're an expert, but you're not pushing or growing, your road is coming to an end. This idea of, there's specialists, and in a lot of fields that maybe isn't true. If I make this perfect box, I can make this box again and again, and it's always perfect. That's great. You've created something wonderful. But from the artistic place, from that place of creativity, there has to be growth, and there has to be risk, and we have to be willing to step into the unknown.
Yes.
And
actually, that's where the magic is.
That's right.
I think.
And the magic is really what makes artwork stunning, right? And beautiful. It's not the executioner of the art. It's the fact that they were willing to put themselves into this place of discovery, and with the audience, with the viewer, you discovered something, and you share it, and they get to discover something with you for the first time. And that's stunning. That's the big aha moment. And that's where the great artists really stand out, because they gave you something you'd never seen before. And the only way they could do that was to risk failure, to risk falling on their face, even at whatever level they were at.
Yeah. And actually, with my most recent, so I paint primarily abstracts now, completely abstract. They used to be more landscape based, but they've become really abstracted. And it's just naturally happened that way. It wasn't a deliberate decision, I don't think. But the last series I made, which was a series of about 15 small pieces, each one of them was a complete surprise. The whole series came together, and then I realized what it was about after I'd made them. And I was excited by each one of them because they were brand new. But what was interesting was they were awful. Every one of them was awful up until there was the last 5 minutes. And somehow I did something, and it was like a couple of times I missed the moment, but in most cases I did something, went, oh, it's done, stop, that's it. If I had showed people every other stage until that bit, they would have gone, yeah, no, that's not working. And there, of course, still will be people who go, no, even looking at the finished ones. But I was really thrilled with them, but not until, so I've got some on the go now, which are, ugly. And I'm okay with that, because I know I love that magic moment when you're just like, oh, it's gone from horror show, another layer, horror show, another layer, horror show, a boring, horror show. That's exciting. Follow that, go with that. And then something happens. And if it got, like, I know how I did those now because they came about. I know how I made them. I don't want to do that again, because as you say, then I know how to do that now. I want to see what happens next. Do you have this though? Because I want to see what happens next, but I kind of have to wait until so I'll keep painting, but nothing's going on until that next thing emerges.
Yeah. Well, yes. And as a matter of fact, I'm working on a painting just like that right now. One of the big parts of that for me, and this is something I've noticed with a lot of students as well, is there's this feeling that you're not doing it, that you're, well, I mean, and this happens at every tier of the game. And I can guarantee, even to the bulletproof artist out there in the blue chip world, I know, because I'm an artist, that they are not as bulletproof as you might think. That somewhere in that, because if they're truly engaged in that artistic process, there is a good portion of that process when they know it's not working. And if they're like me with a little bit of neuroses, they may even question their own ability completely. Like, you start painting and you go, I've lost it. It's gone.
I can't do this.
The muse has left the building, but it's this kind of thing that you have to be able to lean in on and push through. And a lot of my students, I think one of the biggest struggles that they have is they start out that painting with this brilliant idea, and it is brilliant. It's, they're inspired. And then halfway through it, they go, I didn't pull it off. So I painted it out. I've painted it white or something. And I go, oh, no. You haven't finished it. If you're not in love with it, if it hasn't landed for you, then why would you hold on to it? Why would you put it aside? Keep working, keep indulging in that process. Sometimes we have to take big breaks, move on to the next one. I love to work in multiples because I think this can get us stopped, but there's some answer might be over here in the next one we're working on. But that's what isn't it? For me, it's really about breaking it into small, manageable discoveries, small, manageable steps.
Yeah. And I think that idea is probably one I learned from you when you were coaching on the other program, because you must have said that at some point. Something like, you haven't ruined it, you just haven't finished it. And it's like, oh yeah, because you will get something and then you'll keep going and you'll mess it up, what you had. But actually, I know now I wouldn't have kept going if I didn't know it wasn't really finished. So I wouldn't have made that so-called mistake and kept going if there wasn't something telling me, no, it's still not right. So yeah, it was probably nice at that point. It was probably acceptable, but I wanted more. So I pushed it, then I lost it. And this particularly used to happen to me when I painted representationally, that I might just lose all sense of even what it was supposed to look like, what the thing it was. But as you say, just keeping okay, well, it wasn't finished. And yeah, those last brush marks were not very nice, and all those colors were wrong or whatever, but it's just paint, and we can keep going on top of it. And there's sanders if we need to get rid of things, and there's all sorts of ways to use what you've got and build on it. And I think of it as just you're finding your way through a maze, maybe, and you took that turn, it wasn't the right turn, so you reverse back and you come here and you take another turn. But every bit you go through the maze is something you've learned not to go that way again. It might be
hopefully
way.
You're leaving some breadcrumbs or something, so when you're back into the same place, so you really are not in the same place. You look, you go, oh, I've been down that one, I don't need to do that again.
That didn't work.
I think that's, leave some breadcrumbs if you're in a maze. Rip your, because because there is that idea of, just being steadfast and determined may not be enough in a singular piece. If you're just working and you can just be beating this thing to death, you do have to stop and reflect and look at it and go, what? I need to shift this. I need to revisit how I've been approaching this. Maybe take something, a drastic action, take a risk, be bold enough to completely fail. You've been slowly failing. You've been frittling your time away. Maybe it's time to get radical. But
I just made a YouTube video, which will be out on Thursday. And it was that exactly. I was working on this big canvas, and I don't have a series going at the moment, which I normally do. I just have this canvas which was going to be a do anything you like canvas and just have some fun because I'm too busy to start a whole series, but I want to paint. But it started turning into quite a nice abstract landscape, and I started making it nice. And then I was like, oh, it's not exciting to me. And look what I've done. I'm not supposed to be making a painting. So I put the camera on the tripod and I put the time lapse on, and I just filmed myself destroying it, like in as many different ways as I could think to destroy it. And then I'm putting the video up on YouTube of a painting that's a mess. I've since moved it on from that. But it's the next thing to challenge myself is to show people, look, I make a mess. I'm happy to put it on YouTube and show you that eventually this will look good, but it doesn't look good yet, and it's okay. And you know what? Some things came out of that. Some little ideas of things I enjoyed doing that I want to work on more when I go back to it. So it's just that idea. If we could just get everybody to understand who's stressed, all our students to understand that, as you said, everybody feels that at all the levels. Everybody, and the guy who said 12 feet tall and bulletproof, he also told me that every time he starts a new series for a museum show, he thinks he can't do it again. He can't remember how he did it. He thinks, what am I even doing? So he has that same fear.
Right.
And he's been at this for ages at a high level. If he has that fear, we're all going to have it. He gets to the middles of paintings and thinks they're awful. He destroys, he said, a third of his paintings because they're no good, and he doesn't believe he can bring them back. So he actually slashes the canvases and stamps on the wooden frames until they slash.
I've heard about that approach. I don't recommend it personally. It takes a long time to stretch a canvas. It's a lot of work.
A lot of money gone into those canvases. But anyway, must be nice if you're rich enough. But why not? But that point of just those feelings you're having that you think mean you're not talented actually mean you're just the same as all the other artists that you admire. And it just what you're making those things mean versus what they're making them mean is the only difference. You're making it mean, oh, I'm not cut out for this. And we're making it mean, oh, here's that feeling again. Just got to keep going until it goes away.
And it is, you know, I guess maybe I hate to introduce an exercise metaphor, but it is an idea of like, well, just only because I'm so sore right now, and I think I've got a hernia, and who knows, I can't run. but that's why it's on my mind. This idea of, you know, if you haven't been to the gym or whatever for, say, 2 years now, then
I was going to say, let's say like 10 years in my case.
Oh no, I was just thinking of COVID, you know. But this idea of the first day out, and then you get a trainer or something, and they push you really hard, and you can't move for a week. And it really hurts, and and then that just kills you. You know, like, I'm not going back there. I don't want to feel like that again.
Yeah.
But if you just started with a couple little, you know, maybe it's 3 sit-ups, and that's it. But then you get it and you do it again the next day, and the next day, you build up that you know what, I can do this, and it's slowly building those muscles, the reviving that muscle memory, even if you've done it in the past. And it's those little steps, that little bit of kind of process work, that's what enables the big shoulder museum guy to handle that kind of stress. You don't start there, you know. It's something that happens by allowing ourselves to make little mistakes in the privacy of our own studios. One of the things that I noticed in, you know, especially on your YouTube, I was just watching an older video of yours on YouTube with, you were using watercolor and the little spray bottle and just blowing these things up in your sketchbook. They were just so beautiful. They were gorgeous designs that you created. And I realized I haven't picked up watercolors for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And I needed that, you know, I was talking about that idea of repetition, and that lack of creativity where we get stuck in a rut, we get caught in what we're feeling safe around, what we know how to do, and allowing ourselves to do that thing that we've been maybe pushing aside or are uncomfortable with. can be such a game changer for us artistically, because now we're finally doing the thing that will challenge us to get bigger than ourselves. And for some, for me, it's really is this abstract process of exploration and materials, and just let me try this out. I've never tried that. I came from a really formal background, was watercolor to start, lots of draftsmanship, oil paints. I didn't even pick up acrylics until I started doing, public murals outside, but it was like oil, and it was regimented. Yeah. And so I missed out on all of that exploration. And so for me, that was it's such a gift to be able to get in there and really explore what's possible. What do I even like? Yeah. Yes. And that's where, for some people, I think too, there's two versions of this. I think for me, it's like, I really want to learn what's possible. I want, I know you've got something coming up. I want to get to that in a second, because I want to sign up. So I'm excited about it. But I want to know what's possible. I want to just get in there and learn about myself. And on the other hand, I think there are a lot of artists out there who know what they want to do, but they don't have necessarily the tools to do it. And so they just put it aside and they say, I can't, I've never been able to do that. Or there's nothing in this world that's really true for. There's a way of getting there incrementally. And it may be a way that no one else has ever done it. But if you think you can't do something, I guarantee you there is a way of achieving it. It might take little steps. It might, there's a way of getting there. And that idea that we allow ourselves to believe that it's not for us, or that's just something I could never do. It's to do with putting in the effort, isn't it? When I have a friend who makes frames for me, and at one point he said to me, you could do this, it's not that complicated. If I showed you, you could do this. So he started showing me, and then I was like, right, I don't want to. I believe you that I could, but I have zero desire to do this, because I really don't like I don't like measuring. I just don't want to do this. So, but if we want to do it, I do believe that I could have learned to make beautiful frames if I wanted to, if I wanted to put the effort and time in. And it's the same with making art. We know we can. It always kind of makes me chuckle when someone says, oh, I tried a couple of abstract paintings and I'm just not cut out for it. It's like, well, it takes time to make a good abstract painting. It might look difficult, like it doesn't, but it does. And so rather than realizing, oh, that's difficult and giving up, if we've got the desire to put in the time and effort, and it is a fun journey to learn, if you want to. Like if you made it into a game, if you've made it into something that you're excited to show up for. Yeah, but you've got to love it. And that's where, so my idea and what I talk about a lot is joy. But people sometimes think that word means, happy, skippy, like I'm dancing when I'm painting. And then they say, well, what about art that's dark and not happy? And I don't mean by joy in making art that you necessarily make happy paintings or that you necessarily feel happy. But what I mean is you are doing what's truly aligned with who you are. So it feels good to do. It feels natural. And you want to show up and do more of it because it's exciting to you. And then it matters less that you don't love every aspect of the results if you love doing it. But what we tend to do as beginners, and I certainly did when I began, is look at the work of people I admire and say, oh, I really want to make art like that. And I think in particular, I'm thinking of an abstract landscape artist I knew at the time, or whose work I knew at the time and loved. And she worked in oil and cold wax. She did lots and lots of layers. I didn't understand that. I just thought, I want those kind of effects. So I would try to get those kind of effects with one layer of acrylics, and then it wouldn't work. And then I would think, oh, I just don't have the same talent as she does. Getting to know what actually began to turn things around
for me was having a workshop with her for 2 days and she was very much of the mindset of grab some materials, have a play, see what happens. And I suddenly realized, oh, she gets those effects through layers of paint. That's how she does it, not intentionally, but accidentally through layering.
The veil's lifted all of a sudden.
It was like, it's not a big mystery. It's that she's willing to put these layers on, sand them back, cover them up, scrape them off, do all this stuff. But it's that finding what it is that feels good or that you admire in the way other people are working, and then trying it for yourself and seeing if it feels good, and then following that to just find that excitement in the process and the discoveries. I think that's what I think is so important. And then once you're in that mindset of discovery and exploration, you do need some information about color and composition, and all that stuff is important. But often what happens in art education is that comes first. And for me, when I was beginning, it was too confusing. I had all these things in my head, the rule of thirds, the golden mean, the don't put white, don't mix black with anything, just various rules that I picked up and ideas I picked up, but no cohesive way of putting them together into a system that would help me. So they were just making me feel tight and constrained instead of giving me what I needed. So my approach is, let's get free first. Let's get rid of the fear. Let's have some fun and realize it's just paint. And then let's layer some knowledge on top of that can then help you to make your paintings stronger and make you feel more satisfied with them. Because at some point people say, well, I've had great fun. You know, on my course, we go 10 weeks, and at like 5 weeks, people are free and they're throwing paint around, and then they're saying, but how do I like make it look better? And so that's when you have to talk about the other things which you're so expert in teaching, because I took your course. So I kind of introduce those ideas when I'm teaching. I give people the basics so they can start to learn and explore color, learn and explore composition. And then I usually introduce them to either you or to another program that's for abstract painters, but to a program that really dives deeper into that more technical knowledge, which I know some people don't want that. Some people just want to have fun. Yeah, that's fine. But if you want to know what to do next, I think you need to keep learning.
Well, and also that even the idea of having fun is interesting, because it's like, moving through all this process, finding these colors, finding these textures. But eventually, right, we want to compose something, we want to make something happen. What you saw, though, with your in your workshop when you were first getting started with this lady was, oh my goodness, she actually does. It's an accident, but it's an accident through these processes. And if you haven't ever explored what processes are out there, how are you ever going to arrive at these amazing results? I remember I was in Portland. I'll never forget this. And that's always saying something when there's this moment. But I was it was formerly the Laura Russo Gallery in Portland, Oregon. It's a very fine gallery. I think it's the Russo Gallery now or something. But there was this painting on the wall, and it was abstract, and there were these little bits of line coming through, but the line was all kinds of colors, and it had depth, and it had actual physical depth. And I looked at it, and I went, this is why this person's in this gallery. It's so beyond me. I have no idea how they achieved that. It's so they're magic. Yeah. And I looked at it, and I was an artist, and I stared at it, and I wanted it so badly. I wanted to lift the veil, and I couldn't. I didn't know. And I stared at it. I probably stood there for 15 minutes. And now I know. Now I know how that was achieved, and it's still magic, but I actually have the tools to be able to do that. And that's so extraordinary because of this process of exploration that, I could arrive somewhere that I thought was impossible. I think that's, on the other side of this abstract and representational world is there are a lot of people, and I think I'm included in that, who I love the physicality of things. I want there to be some kind of image. There's something in there. And so, but I know I've run into a lot of art students who are abstract painters almost just because they're like, some abstract painters are just incredibly in that space, but some in the same way that you're saying, you know, I don't know, I could never do that. It's, I could never draw, you know, I can only draw a stick figure. I've heard that so many times. It's probably because you've drawn a few stick figures and never allowed yourself to get beyond that. And I think in the same way that there's abstraction, there's these steps to unveil how that texture was created, how she achieved those results. Drawing things that are really terrifying to people, those are also can be incrementally broken down and simplified and made small and achievable. And that's, I think that's maybe the whole of art, right? The fear is, look over there, that's impossible. And the truth is, everyone has to take that walk there. No one gets to go from one place to the next. We all have to take those little steps as we go.
You go in, babe. That's exactly it. I worked in black and white when I first started, ink drawings and ink and water, because I was afraid of color. Then I did watercolors because I thought it would be easy. Haha. I thought that would be easier than anything else. Because I was afraid.
That's a tough one for people to realize. It's like the hardest medium there is.
I know, and I was terrible at it. But then, so it was very gradual steps, and then I did realistic work because that's what I didn't even consider abstract, to be honest, because I didn't even know what it was or why you would do it. I gradually moved towards abstraction, and this is really important because, as you said, you love the physicality of the external world. I have always been like, I live in my own head. I don't live in the world with everyone else. I'm away with the fairies, as my mom used to say. And I would very happily be on my own for the rest of my life, I think, and just like not really worry about that too much. So there's so much going on in my mind that it's like a release for me if I can get it out in some way. And so what it turned out, I used to think I wanted to paint the landscape, and I gradually came to realize I wanted to express my feelings, and sometimes that was about the landscape and sometimes it wasn't. And if I can release them, it's like a pressure valve, and then I can have some quiet time in my head. So absolutely,
that's art for me,
to get quiet time.
I got to get it out. I got to put it out here, because if it stays in here, I don't sleep.
Buzzing around. So it's so important for each person, just what you said, to find out what their thing is. And if your thing, I mean, your like disrupted realism with lots of lovely effects, but if your thing is hyper realistic, photorealistic painting, then that's what you should do. If your thing is sewing into canvases and doing textile on canvases, that's what you should do. You shouldn't think, oh, somebody else does it. This is one of the roadblocks that we talked before about, talking about roadblocks, believing that real artists do X, and whatever we think real artists do, it's never what we're doing. It's always something else.
It's out there.
Yeah. So Gabe doesn't paint really realistically. He has these amazing backgrounds that come through his figures, and I don't do that, but I probably should. I should do that because that's what he's doing, and I've seen other people do that, and it's great. But I'm drawn to doing really, really realistic painting, but I shouldn't do that. Or, I just do abstracts. I think I can't draw. I just do abstracts. And I probably should try to draw when I've got no desire. In this case, if I'm a person who's got no desire, but I should, because somebody told me that.
Or the other one is the person who says, oh, I want to disrupt this. I want to get into abstraction. I want to move in that direction, but I haven't mastered this yet. I just need to keep, once I've arrived at this careful rendering, because I believe, and this is something I've heard a million times, and I believed it sometimes. You have to learn it all first. You have to master the academic fundamentals, and then we can move on into the abstraction or whatever. And I don't believe that at all. I think it needs to be simultaneous, because every one of these can be a rabbit hole. You know, I'm going to make sure that I get the eyeball just perfect. Well, the next thing you know, you're a master of eyeballs, and you have no experience with the rest of the canvas or a composition or even what you love yet. You don't even know. So there's this idea that we have to earn it, and we have to pay our dues, and we have to go through this hard system of self-flagellation on both sides. I think, even, you know, whether you're abstract or representational, it's like, no, I have to get this right, and then I can finally do the thing that lights me up. And it's, you know, that's unfortunate, because how are we ever going to get there? It never ends. Anything that we're focusing on you can continually go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. And the other really big thing I see people do is comparison. And I'm going to go to an example of one of my students who, there was an artist in an online group that she'd been in, and he was making these amazing portraits of kind of like 1940s people. He was taking photographs, doing these stunningly beautiful portraits. Everybody loved them. Beautiful color, beautiful composition, amazing. Right. And she really admired his work, and she said, I could never do anything like him. And I said, no, you couldn't, but you could do you. And what kind of portraits do you want to do? And when we got to the bottom of what she wanted to do, she said, oh, I want to do really powerfully emotional portraits of women. And I said, let's go back to look at his portraits, because the one thing they haven't got is emotion. They were not meant to have. They were meant to be something else. They're not emotional portraits. They're nostalgic, they're stunning, disrupted realism, but they're not what you say you want to do. So you're longing for something which isn't what you want. And once we got to that place, the first painting that she did after that was this ghostly portrait of her mother who had Alzheimer's. And it was like a young portrait, but it had oldness in it. And it was like took your breath away. And she was amazed. And since then, she's done all these really, really emotional portraits. And it's that thing of we're not allowing ourselves to want what we want, because we're busy looking at what someone else is amazing at. You know, yes, okay, he's amazing at that, but that's what he's good at. And why would you want to do what someone else is good at when you can do what you've got inside you, which is always unique?
Yeah. And I think that walk, I struggle with it still. I think, oh, you know, here I am, I'm painting another beautiful woman. You know, people are going to think that I love beautiful women. And then it's like, well, wait,
I do.
I do. So it's okay. You know, it's permission granted. It's funny how we have these, you know, internal dialogues with ourselves about where we're going to, you know, what's allowed, where are we going to land, what our voice should look like. What if our spouse, you know,
that's
comes in, and what do they? Oh, isn't it? I mean, this is huge.
Yeah.
So many people, when they're talking about their paintings, the first thing they say is, "Well, my husband or my wife said this about it." That's how they start the conversation about their work.
Yeah.
And of course, we're so connected to, you know, that world of our families, of the ones closest to us, and we value it. It's of huge value. And oftentimes, I think, for a lot of people, that value is such a place that we don't feel comfortable potentially allowing ourselves to paint, even, because that's a selfish act. Yeah. Right. It's like, oh, I couldn't, you know, I'd love to, but I have all these things that are pulling on me that I have to do. You know,
that's a big one.
Life takes precedent. This is what I have to do. And then, you know, maybe someday I'll be able to do that. Meantime, you're kind of miserable, right?
Yeah.
The studio's calling you, you're an artist, and you know, the family knows it. They can feel that.
Yeah.
It's like one of the most generous things I think that we can do for our families, and maybe ourselves too, is to give ourselves that time to be creative and explore, because then we can, that recharges us. It doesn't take as much time as you think to give yourself that energy. for me, I know it's a circle. When I come into the studio and I put something down and I allow myself just to go into that space, I come back with a lot more. All of a sudden, it's rare, but all of a sudden I'm making a dinner and I'm, washing the car, and it's like, where did that come from? It came from allowing myself to find that joy, which
which
comes
find
right
your
up.
joy.
Yeah. So yeah, Louise, you've got a little Find Your Joy workshop coming up here pretty soon. It's a free workshop. It's I'm going to be there for sure. I'm ready to make a mess.
Oh,
so,
good.
Yeah,
because that's what we need. We make a mess on this. So it's a really enticing prospect, isn't it? Come and make a mess. Come and learn how to make a mess. Somebody in the Facebook group for the course, which starts next week, said, "Oh, I can't wait to make some beautiful things." And I said, well, she said exciting and beautiful things. I said, I can promise exciting. I'm not sure I can promise beautiful. So it's 8 days actually of exploration, guided exploration. So I give exercises, I give talks, I do live calls, I answer questions, I show a couple of demos, I think. Yeah, a few demos. Just generally 8 days to loosen up and learn how to get into this mindset that we're talking about. And the people who take the course are either, so it's my 3rd year now, so I kind of know who they are. They're either experienced artists who are looking to have just a break, say, from what they do, like you.
Yeah, that's what I'm ready.
Or they're like often kind of, oh, I've been painting dog portraits or people portraits for 30 years and I just feel like I want to branch out, but I don't know how to let loose now after all this training. Or people at the beginning or early stages of painting who are a bit like I was when I started. And so they've picked up all these bits and pieces and ideas, but they don't know how to put it all together and they're frustrated with what they're creating. And it's really about tapping into that joyful feeling, finding out what it is that makes you feel good when you work. And as I said, that doesn't mean that you're going to paint flowers and sunshine. It could mean that you make really dark art, but it must feel good to you to do it. And that's the key. And so in 8 days, I do my best to get you to let loose and start finding. I can't promise you transformation in 8 days, but I can promise you a real shift in mindset. And I do have people who email me who only ever did my free week, because of course there's a paid thing at the end. There always is, isn't there? So there is a paid thing, but I do get emails still from people who in different years have done the free thing and said it changed my life. Because for some people, all it takes is that click over of, oh, I can do whatever I want. Because that's the thing we haven't talked about. But in our art, I can't think of another area of my life where I can do whatever I want without asking anybody else. Even if I go for a walk with my dog, he has a say about how fast we go or
the dog
where
does.
where we go.
Sometimes the walk stops cold.
Yeah. So, but in my studio, in here, no one else gets to tell me. And that's a fantastic thing about making art too. It's just us. So I want to, in that 8 days, get you to forget your husband's opinion or your wife's opinion or your brother-in-law's opinion or the neighbor's opinion or the dog's opinion, and just be focused on yourself and what you like. So that is to get to sign up for that. If you're not already on it, you can go to my website, which is louisefletcherart.com, or you can, to make it easy, go to bit.ly/FYJ21. because that's the initials of the course.
Hey, Dave, do you have that? Can you post that in the chat and on Facebook? Yeah, can you say that one more time, Louise? We'll get that up on.
So it's bit.ly/FYJ, all capitals, 21.
So bit.ly.
Yeah.
/LYJ.
FYJ for Find Your Joy.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense.
FYJ 21.
Okay,
So,
21. Got it.
but it's also on my website at louisefletcherart.com.
What's 21? What's 21? Because that reminds me of my, oh, it certainly
it's 2021.
Oh, it reminded me of my 21 a week, which is that kind of tiny little incremental thing. I'll just leave this for people who are wanting to draw. 21 a week is like 5 minutes, three little sketches. You know, this is obviously not abstraction, but it's the opposite. It's like the little steps. And this is the kind of thing that we're talking about really, is get your toes in the water, jump in there, explore with what's possible. So 5 minute sketches, 3 a day, 21 a week is what it comes out to. In my hashtag 21 a week, you see people drawing just little terrible drawings, like little scribbles, unapologetically enjoying the practice of just moving their hands around. And Louise, you're taking it a bit further with paint and tools and juice, you know?
But the drawing thing actually was really good for me, because I am able to draw, but it's a long time since I've done it. And when I did your course, so not this year, last year, I did your course, and having to draw again, you sent us this assignment to draw, and I was like, oh, I did a drawing that it kind of looked like what it's supposed to look like, but I was like, oh, that's boring. Like, I need to get back into my drawing skills. So drawing is something that even if you can do it, if you don't do it, you do get rusty. I learned you need to get back into it again.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the big breakthroughs for me around drawing was because I learned the fundamental approach to drawing, classical realism, you know, a Russian background in schooling, all these things. And the revelation that a drawn line doesn't actually have to end up looking like anything, that you can just scribble and that's still drawing, that you can still you can make marks. You can just, you know, go off with a pencil. You can do that on an acrylic painting right on the top if you want. What? You know, I mean, how fun is that? That you can literally take up drawing at any stage of the game, and it doesn't even have to look like anything. You can just begin, you know, cross-hatching or making little squiggles or whatever, and that's fun. It's meditative, it's beautiful, and it's really interesting when you see little bits of that coming through sometimes on a painting. Yeah.
I love scribbling on my paintings. I've got a thing about scribbling.
Well, one of my colleagues here at the Enclave Studios, we share it. There's 4 of us. Corey Kahn. She and I decided we'd team up and make a painting. And she comes from the Chicago school, so she's a bit more abstracted. And she takes this oil pastel and just started scribbling all over this huge painting we've been working on. And I was not ready for that. She didn't give me any heads up, you know. And it was fantastic. So those little bits of scribble that came through were some of my favorite parts of the painting in the end. I love seeing those little bits. So well, Louise, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day this morning. It's Memorial Day over here in the States, so we're honoring
it's a holiday here too.
It's
not Memorial Day. We just have a holiday. I don't know why we have a holiday, but we do. So
well, you should. It's hopefully it's nice there. It's beautiful here.
Nice day.
So yeah, I love starting off this way, you know, where it's just coming up on 10 o'clock. But thanks so much. And it's always, you know, Louise, ever since since we were in your studio, I was in mine together in the old course, and then I found you on Art Juice. I just really enjoy talking with you.
Yeah, I love talking to you too. So thank you very much for inviting me. And Marianne, thank you for your lovely comments. Marianne's just saying her daughter took my course. Oh no, her daughter made her sign up for my course in 2019.
Even better.
A month after her husband died, and it definitely got her going. And then she found you. So there you go, Marianne.
Yeah, thanks. Marianne has been an amazing part of our course too. She's currently in the course right now, and it's just so fantastic to see people's transformation and the energy around artwork, and that we can come together as a group of artists and share the trials and tribulations and the joy that comes with creating.
That was a good wrap up. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. And much love to you and yours, and we'll see you again.
Thank you, Gabe, and thank you,
All right.
everybody, for watching.
All
See
right,
you
bye.
soon. Bye.